So instead of hiring more mini-me's that are going to do things exactly like I do, I should be looking to fill my team with people that have complementary skill sets to my skill set. So let me give you an example of that. I have a founder's mentality. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, excuse me, of Female Empowered. I'm your host, Krista Gurka. And as this episode is airing on the podcast, we will be in May. If you are watching this live on Facebook or on Instagram, you get it live, right? So if you're watching it on the podcast, you'll just get this episode after it goes through editing. I think it's in a week or so. So anyways, today I am going to talk about the number one mistake I see business owners make when it comes to hiring. And I think this is a really, really important topic right now because so many of us in the healthcare, wellness, fitness, healthcare industry, movement industry, actually any industry right now is having a really, really hard time finding people who work with us, finding employees to fill a variety of roles. And it leaves a lot of us kind of scratching our head as to why is it that, we've heard so much about the Great Resignation and people leaving their jobs and people getting laid off, that why is it so hard now for people returning to the industry? And while I have no real definitive answers about that, I'm going to go over a few statistics. I do have some insight as to what will help you be, as successful as you possibly can when it does come to hiring, okay? And also to realize it's really important, I believe, to have a system and a process when it comes to hiring. What is your system? What is your process? Even if you're hiring for part-time, the more you have this systematized and create a process around it, the better you get at it each time. So I've been doing this now for, well over 15 years, because I was responsible for hiring even when I was in my previous job as a clinic director. I was responsible for hiring, but as a business owner, I've been doing this for 12 years. And while I will say I'm not perfect at it, I've definitely gotten better at it year after year after year, even to the time right now that at Pilates in the Grove, I'm not even the number one person accountable for hiring. I've been able to delegate that and pass that off to people because we have a system in place that will ensure that all the steps are followed each and every time that happens. So let's get to some statistics. So basically, I did a lot of research for this episode because I really wanted to see if I could dig into and deep dive into some of the statistics about what people have called the Great Resignation. So, over the past 2 years, over 33 million Americans have turned the job market upside down. Okay, I believe it was over 33 million Americans have either been terminated from a role or voluntarily left their roles after some point, or have transitioned in some capacity into a new role, a different role, a hybrid of sorts into what they were doing in the past. So industries that have experienced the most elevated resignations, terminations, transformations, all of that have been in leisure and hospitality, basically accommodations, hotel, food service industries, restaurants, fitness, wellness, and those kind of things, okay? They have had the most significant proportions of turnover in workers out of all the industries. So currently, there's 823,652 people employed in the gym, health, and fitness clubs industry in the US as of 2022, which is a drop of over 20% since 2019. Now, that might seem like it's not that big of a number to you. And one of the reasons that that number is not as large is because most of this industry in fitness and wellness, even in healthcare, so in physical therapy practices, boutique fitnesses, a lot of the workers are contractors. Okay, so those don't get counted as employees per se, as W-2 employees. So that's why this number gets a little skewed. But what we have really seen is there is a significant drop in available instructors, available physical therapists, available, even managers, because of what happened to healthcare, wellness, and fitness during the shutdown of after that started in March of 2022. So the gym, health, and fitness industry is estimated to be the second highest ranked industry within arts, entertainment, and recreation, and the 52nd largest employment industry in the United States currently. All right. Now, one of the reasons that I think, anyways, after diving into a lot of this research and also listening to a lot of podcasts about the topic, there were more business licenses opened in 2021 than ever before. And a lot of industry experts believe this is what accounts for a significant drop in employment. So a lot of people, especially in the fitness and boutique fitness and studio and healthcare industry, during the time, because there was, if you were in Manhattan or California or some places, there were businesses were shuttered for years, months and months and months. And it was, if you were a small business without a ton of cash flow, it was really hard for people to survive. A lot of people closed. A lot of people just stopped paying rent. A lot of people are involved in lawsuits now, and a lot of people are trying to build their business back up. So what happened during that time period was, again, we hear this all the time. People pivoted, and I'm doing air quotes, to online live streaming type options. And so they had to lay off a lot of their staff. And so what happened? So instructors then decided, oh, well, I guess I could do this. And they started creating their online content, whether all you needed really was a internet and a phone or a laptop or a tablet of some sort and a Zoom integration and a Zoom account, basically. And so a lot of instructors left to start their own businesses. People left, they had to move back in with their parents. So we saw a lot of people leaving Manhattan to go, whether it be moving to places that were less expensive or moving back in with their families, or leaving the state altogether. Some people did that in California. People were moving to places that were more open and more accessible for them to be able to work. Now, that being said, what we have seen a lot in the fitness industry is exactly that. People kind of went out on their own and they started recording live content. They realized I could do this without having a studio support me. And that's, great if they feel that they can continue to do that sustainably over the course of the next couple of years and make an income that they can live off of. I don't fault anyone for trying to improve their life, improve their lifestyle, go and do what they want. We've seen this across physical therapists, where this younger generation is just deciding either I want to start a business on my own, I want to go mobile, I can go to people's homes. They don't really know what they want, so they're quitting jobs after 6-7 months, deciding this isn't exactly my calling, and moving to other businesses or other companies, and so that has definitely hurt our industry a little bit. So we can't necessarily control other things. We can't control other people. We can't control people leaving to go start their own businesses. We can't control people deciding after 3 months that they don't want to stay in this business. Everyone has agency over themselves to make these decisions that are what's good for them and for what their lifestyle is. So the things that we can control as business owners are the systems, the expectations, the environment for which we're trying to recruit these people into. All right. So we can't worry if someone is going to necessarily leave. But what we can do is we can try to create an environment that is so welcoming, so appealing, so energizing that these people now don't want to leave. Right? They want to stay. They feel part of a community. They feel aligned with your mission and vision. They feel like they can see upward mobility for them. All right. So what I wanted to talk about today was the mistakes I see a lot of business owners make when it comes to hiring. And a lot of these mistakes, by the way, are mistakes I've put in here because they were mistakes that I made that I realized after the fact that was wrong on my part, right? And what I want to improve on when I create this hiring system and try to bring around a better hiring system that will ultimately lead to better hires and long-term commitments. Because, we talk about churn in client retention. So in other words, if clients are coming in for 3 or 4 months and then they're leaving, what is that costing the business? We all know that it costs more to constantly get new clients in than it does to retain them. It's the same with employees, okay? It costs a lot more to get in new employees or new contractors, whatever you want to call it, new team members. It costs you more than it does to retain a good employee. Now, I'm not saying retain a bad employee. And what do I mean by a bad employee? Now, sometimes employees can be great at providing the service. So maybe they're amazing clinicians, they're great physical therapists, the clients love them, but they're really a drain on the business on the back end. They are drama, they're always complaining about something. They want you to cater to their every need. They don't act like a team player, right? So they're not really necessarily doing anything wrong per se. They come in, they show up, they do a great job, but they're behind the scenes creating not such a great culture, right? And toxic culture right now is the #1 reason people say they leave a work environment, because of a toxic culture. And toxic culture, even though people say it's like from the bottom, it starts from the top down, because if we as leaders don't put that in check from the beginning, people lose trust in us. And if you go back to the 5 dysfunctions of a team, trust is the #1 most important thing to have amongst team members. Okay, so I think I just got off on a little bit of tangent, but let me go back to the things that I feel are mistakes that we make when it comes to hiring. Now, the episode is called the #1 mistake, and it was really hard for me to come up with one. So I'm actually going to give you a few mistakes, but the #1 mistake I see happen when people, and there's a couple mistakes kind of all rolled up into one in these, is when owners or leaders or managers, whoever is the one doing the hiring, I'm going to speak specifically right now to small business owners, boutique fitness business owners. What happens is that if you're expecting your hires to be just like you, that's an unrealistic expectation, #1. And #2, you're setting yourself up for failure. And here's why, okay? I'm going to just put it plain and simple. You have to stop expecting others to be just like you, because #1, if they were just like you, they would be an owner just like you. All right. You don't want a bunch of owners on your team, because then what happens is people will eventually leave and go open their own studios. Okay. So what you have to get, the underlying issue to this is getting clear on what your expectations are so that you can articulate that to the prospective hire during the interview process. Okay. Now, and you can be as granular as you want about this or as global as you want about this. I like to kind of be halfway in between. Okay. We always talk about our core values when we are bringing people in during the hiring process. We list our core values out, and we generally formulate the interview questions around things that will help us understand if our core values align with the interviewee's core values. Did that make sense? I'm trying to think if it made sense. So, for example, one of our core values at Pilates in the Grove is we over me. That means we have a team approach to everything that we do. We share clients, we help each other, we cover for each other. We saw this tremendously over the last couple of years. So if someone is coming on our team, they need to be a team player. So examples of questions we ask to see how they like working with a team are things like, you know, when you were at your last job, did you take part in team activities or community events? Things like, do you prefer to work independently or do you like working as part of a team? Do you enjoy being in the studio by yourself or do you like it when your teammates are around? Do you like to share ideas with teammates or do you prefer to kind of stick to your own path? What is something that you think is really important when you're working in a studio environment? Things like that. So we can see, does we over me align with them? Right? If they're in it for themselves, then that doesn't mean that that's bad. It just doesn't really fit for our culture at Pilates in the Grove. Another thing that we do to eliminate this mistake or at least me eliminating this mistake is I have started to, over the last, now this didn't happen overnight, this happened over several years, started to work on garnering as much self-awareness as I can possibly have about myself. So instead of hiring more mini-me's that are going to do things exactly like I do, I should be looking to fill my team with people that have complementary skill sets to my skill set. So let me give you an example of that. I have a founder's mentality. I am a founder, okay? So I often refer to this as the founder's paradox. So and I don't believe I made that up. I believe I heard that. I'm not that cheeky, like somebody else probably said it and I latched onto it. So founders are these people that we are innovators, we are visionaries, we can grind it out and hustle, which also becomes part of our weakness or our downfall, is that we can set ourselves up for burnout if we don't have good self-awareness as to when our strength, when our superpower is becoming our kryptonite. Okay, so one of the things that I do as a founder is, it was this was very relevant during COVID times that I just kind of put my head down. I was like, my job right now is to lead. I am going to keep this business afloat. I am going to keep my team paid. I am going to keep people on board as much as I possibly can. Communicate, get this done. Where that becomes my kryptonite is I often sometimes don't have a lot of patience and good ways of communicating with people because I'm always thinking 5 steps ahead. So I have a hard time sometimes listening to what someone's telling me so that I can formulate a good response. So I've learned this about myself. Now, rather than change myself, which I'm not saying change, like I have definitely become better at this and I work to be better at this. What I want to do is when I'm going to hire someone in a managerial role or someone who's going to take the place of communicating directly with a team, I'm definitely going to look for something that has really good listening skills. Because I feel, not that I'm totally that I totally do not have those. They're not totally absent. I have to work at it a little bit because I'm always thinking of like the next move, what's next, keep my foot on the gas pedal, which again, and sometimes is a strength and sometimes it's my kryptonite. All right. If you've ever done strength finders, it's what we call like the balconies and the basements. Balconies are where you are excelling, your strength is making you really good, it's working for you, it's powerful, and your basement is when your strength is actually causing you damage or burnout, or it's starting to become a weakness for you. Okay, so I have really, the number one mistake I see people make is setting expectations that are just not realistic. Okay, so how do we fix this? We set clear expectations, not only with ourselves and what we are looking for in our next hire, but we have to set clear expectations to them. They, no matter how much we want this in life, they cannot read our minds. It would be wonderful if they could, but they cannot. So the only way to make this work is to be very clear about it. Let me give you an example. If you're hiring an instructor for your boutique fitness studio, my expectation is that all instructors arrive a minimum of 10 minutes before the session begins and stay for a minimum of 10 minutes after the session ends. So if your class begins at 10 a.m., my expectation is that you will be in the studio, stuff put away, ready to teach by 9:50 a.m. That doesn't mean pulling your car in, getting out of the car, or texting me that you're 5 minutes from there. That means in the studio. And I explain to them, integrity and punctuality is a real big trigger for me. So it's really important to me that you show up on time. It's important to me. Because if you show up on time all the time, those 1 or 2 times you get stuck in traffic, then I'm going to understand this is not the norm. This is something that always happens, that never happens. So we're going to excuse it. But if you're showing up a minute late, to me, you're 11 minutes late already. Okay. Another expectation. My expectation is that you will start class and end class on time. You will know the names of the clients in your class. You will leave the studio in an orderly fashion, the way that you found it. Okay, whatever your expectations are, make sure that you give them those expectations ahead of time so that they know what's expected of them. They're not guessing. Okay, people so often when they hire, focus on the actual job responsibilities. Like you're going to teach a Pilates class. That's the easy part. You're hiring an instructor. They should be able to teach a Pilates class. Maybe you have to help them a little bit depending on how long they've been teaching, but the more important things are the nuances within your individual business. How do you want them to interact with clients? How do you want them to interact with coworkers? How do you want them to interact with yourself, with you and your other team members? Those expectations are crucial during the interview process so that you make sure you're hiring the right person and they can make sure that this is the right job for them. Okay. Another big mistake that I see people make is they wait too long to hire and then they end up sacrificing quality just to get someone in the door. So how many times has this happened to you? You're already full. The studio's already busy. You've got more people than you can see on your plate. One of your physical therapists comes to you and says, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. Now, if you're working in a cash-based center, even in an insurance-based center, if your schedule is full and you're about to lose a part-time or even a full-time employee, that is huge. What are you going to do with those 20, 30, 40 people that are on that person's schedule? So then what happens is we put a feeler, a job posting out really quick. We get some resumes, we reach out to people, and then we start missing the red flags because we're so focused on getting someone in just to fill the role. My experience, and I've done this 100,000 times, okay, with hiring people because I had to. So right now, I would rather realize, okay, we're going to lose some business over the next month, or we might have to shut down a class over the next month so that we can hire the right person. because hiring the wrong person, training them, and then having to let them go 2, 3, 4, 6 months down the line is much more costly than waiting an extra week or two to find the right person. The other thing that can help with this that we have found very helpful in our business is to keep people in the pipeline so that if someone that's more full-time or part-time leaves, you can really just move somebody else right up into that place. And that's where I say, knowing what your new hires are looking for, what are their goals, what are their aspirations, do they want to work 40 hours a week? A lot of people now don't want that anymore. Now, what I can tell you people that don't want 40 hours a week anymore, or even 30 hours a week, please don't go to your owners and say that you want to make $100,000 a year, because that will not happen. And it's not because we're trying to pay you less. There is no margin for that. If you want to make $100,000 a year, you should be generating for the business $300,000 a year. And I'll just give you the math on that. All right. For you to generate $300,000 a year, and I'm going to say you're going to want to take time off. So that's a 48-week year. Okay. And you only want to work 30 hours a week. You're going to have to be charging people over $200 an hour. All right. So let's say your studio or physical therapy practice, all right, and I'm giving you 2 extra weeks off because most part-timers don't actually even get time off. If you want to generate $100,000 a year, and your place costs maybe they charge $175 for a session, you have to work 36 hours a week. So if you want to be working 30 hours a week or part-time and make $100,000 a year, that's just not viable in the business model. It's not the owner being a jackass, okay? It's just not viable in the business model. And you have to understand that. So if you want to make $100,000, you have to be working 36 hours a week, charging a minimum of $175. Or if in your class-based setting, $175 would mean like 8 people in a class paying $25 per session. That's just how it works. It's not business owners being assholes, okay? So this is just my soapbox here. Stop telling business owners that they're being assholes because they're not paying you $100,000 a year with benefits when you want to work 25 or 30 hours a week. It's not a viable business option. Now, if you can bring in 20 patients at $250 an hour, then you can make $100,000 a year. You can make more than $100,000 a year. And I bet you your business owner would be really, really happy with that. All right. But then some of the onus has to be on you as a practitioner, as an instructor, okay? There's a New York Times article that literally just came out today. Today is the day this recording is Monday, April 25th. I literally have had 25 people send it to me. There's a New York Times article that just came out about a Pilates studio where the owner charges $500 for a private session, $650 if you want her to go to your house. You can't even get into the studio without a referral. So somebody has to refer you into the studio, and it costs $80 a class. Now, if that instructor wanted to come work for me, then yes, you can do whatever you want. All right. Or for those clients out there, they're like, oh my gosh, $25 is too much for me. That's fine. There's other businesses out there, right? I mean, this is a total tangent off of what we're talking about. But if people are like, oh, someone will not pay $40 a class, people are paying $80 a class and they can't even get in. So there are people out there. You just have to decide where you want to sit in the market and who you want to market to. I believe it's just as hard to market to a $25 person as it is to an $80 person. So you just have to find the niche, find the right messaging, and keep going. And obviously you have to be good at what you do. Although I have no idea if this person's good or not. Okay. But total aside, total tangent, and get off on these soapboxes a little bit. Okay. Now I totally forgot where I was. We were talking about mistakes that business owners make during the hiring process. So we just basically talked about setting clear expectations, making sure that you're not expecting that this person you hire is going to be just like you. Okay. That is mistake number one. Stop expecting yourself and your hires and your team. Okay. And then the last mistake I'm just going to kind of go over with you that I see people hiring is there is no onboarding process. And I'm not talking about onboarding like teach them how to do soft tissue work or teach them how to run a class. Ideally, the person you're hiring already knows how to do that. But I'm talking about onboarding, like, let's talk about what our core values are. Let's talk about how we infuse our core values into everything we do here. See how the front desk person, how, our wonderful administrative staff greeted that client. That's part of our core values. Do you see how everything here is clean and put away in its time in its proper place? That's one of our core values. Do you see how the instructors are the last person in and the last person out of the class time, and they're greeting people and they're waiting and they're making sure that everything, that's one of our core values. Okay. So everything should be discussed as part of this onboarding process. Shadowing, do you want them to shadow you as the owner? Do you want them to shadow your lead therapist or your lead instructor? Give them some structure. Say to them, in the first 30 days, if you accomplish XYZ, you'll be on the road to having an amazing time here at Pilates in the Grove. All right. Talk to them about how they can move up in the company. All right. Have a strategy, have a rubric that says, once you meet these goals, or you do this, or this is how our quality control works, you can now get into the level of, the next higher pay tier. What kind of bonus structure do you have? All right. I am not a big believer on paying people because they have a lot of letters behind their name or because they've taken a continuing education course. I pay people based on results. If you fill your classes, if you have a high utilization rate for one-on-one sessions, if you get great reviews from your clients, if you get great reviews from your team members, those are the results that we're looking for. And I explain this to people during the interview process or during their onboarding process. They know exactly what they need to do to get to the next tier. And they also know if they're doing well or not doing well. So that if it does come time to get to the point that we have to part ways, it's not a surprise to them. We've had these conversations already. We give them things, how we are going to help them, okay, how they can help themselves. We make it very clear. So this is all part of our hiring system. So for those of you that are in FitBiz Foundations or in the Inner Circle, this is module 10. It goes step by step for the job posting that we place, for the interview questions we ask, for the follow-up interview questions we ask, to the offer letters, to the onboarding process, to the 30, 60, 90-day reviews, and then subsequently what happens after that. Okay, so module 10 in our FitBiz Foundations core program goes through the entire hiring process, not just to hire, but how to grow an engaged and empowered team. Okay, because we are only as strong as our weakest link. I do believe that to be true. And I can thankfully say that at Pilates in the Grove, I don't believe we have a weak link, right? And that starts with the processes and the systems that you set in place. Is it easy? No. Do we go through difficult times? Yes. Do I have to put myself at cause for a lot of these things? Yes. And am I learning to be a better leader every single day? Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're interested in learning more about that FitBiz Foundations that has modules on hiring and all sorts of other things, you can go ahead and visit our website, kristagurka.com/work-with-me. You can see all of the programs that we currently have. If you're interested in finding out more, I do free discovery calls. You can also schedule one of those on the website, kristagurka.com. Okay. Check it out. DM me if you have questions about hiring. I love working through different strategies and situations with our business owners that are in our groups. And right now, I know it's hard. We are in the hiring process right now. I know it's hard for people out there right now to find good staff. So when you do, let's make sure that we set it up that they don't leave, because right now it is so hard to find good people. And that's what you need. You need the right people in the right seats for your company. Okay. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you would be so kind and could scroll down and leave a review about the podcast, it would really mean a lot to me. Please, pretty please, with cherry on top. So if you could scroll down where you're listening, leave a review, an honest review. If you could share a few words about what you thought about this podcast, it would literally mean a lot to me. It really helps me grow this platform. And so I'd be forever grateful. And until next time, my friends, have a good one and bye for now.